Our 4th of July is starting with a fizzle, unfortunately. We have big news out of Anaheim. That and a whole lot more on the 4th of July edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Greetings, Jeff Erickson and Fred Zinkie with the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Network and Home Run Index. Thank you for your sponsorship. Thank you for listening, especially on 4th of July. We really appreciate it there. Happy Independence Day to those who are U.S. listeners. And Fred, happy Tuesday.
You know what? I'll take a belated Happy Canada Day from the weekend.
There you go. That'll
our
work.
holiday was on Saturday.
That's right. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for your Blue Jays so well. Red Sox came in and spoiled the whole weekend.
Yeah, the Blue Jays lately have mastered the art of scoring one run fewer than the other team. They just seem to be on one of those runs. If they pitch well, they hit poorly. If they hit well, they pitch poorly. And if it's all going well, the bullpen blows it. Like, it just seems like they're just on a run right now of, like I said, of scoring like one less run than the other team. Some of the advanced metrics say their offense should be better than it is, but it's not. I don't know where it all will go from here, but yeah, a disappointing long weekend for Canadian baseball fans.
Yep.
Thanks to the Red Sox, who have swept the Blue Jays now twice this year.
Yeah, they have, after being pummeled in by the Blue Jays and the rest of their division. Not the case right now, though. So they've actually been very good against the AL East. However, that's not our lead story. Our lead story is unfortunately coming out from the Angels. It's unfortunately an annual tradition. Mike Trout with a significant injury, this time a broken hamate bone. I don't know if you saw the replay of him hurting himself last night. I actually saw it live, Fred, where, he had a swing. I think it was a foul ball, and immediately started shaking his wrist. He was not, he's in a lot of pain. And it wasn't like he got hit. It wasn't like there was contact there. When you see that happening, this can't be good.
Yeah, and it's not, and I am not a doctor, and I don't even try to play one on podcasts, but I did do some quick looking around on how long a hamate bone injury could keep him out, and I don't know, my first looks maybe a couple months, 6 weeks. Like, I don't think this is a 3 or 4 week injury.
Yeah, they say 4 to 8 weeks is what I've seen.
Okay.
So, it's right off the top. That's brutal. And yeah, it's not much you can do with it there. And it's one of those injuries where it just has to heal. And sometimes a player will bounce back, will come back and be gangbusters right out of the gate when they come back. Other times, because it's maybe something that's been holding them back for a while, other times it can ruin their season. I'm thinking Joey Gallo with the Rangers. Remember when he broke his hamate bone? It took him forever to come back, and he was terrible after he came back. He never was quite the same. Other people, it's and the hamate bone is like a little bone in your wrist for those hand wrist area. It's and it's like it's one players can just have straight up removed. They don't even need it, but the problem is just dealing with it there, dealing with the aftermath. It's not like you should have preventive hamate bone removal surgery or anything like that, or any other removal surgery. Just don't do it, guys, unless it needed to be done. But brutal injury. I know you mentioned that line. How much will it really hurt? It'll still hurt. He's not hitting the same sort of power as he's done before. But he still had like an 856 OPS homer yesterday, if I recall correctly. He's already on the IL, and they called up Joe Adell. But you look at him, he's 862 OPS, slugging 493, has a whopping 2 stolen bases this year after only 1 last year. But just really brutal right now. Brutal for the Angels too, because they're kind of surging, had a chance to win a wild card spot. This is pretty devastating.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. From a real baseball perspective, like, I wouldn't say this takes the Angels out of a postseason chance, but it'll be a huge reason if they don't make it, that they don't. It's such a tough, the AL right now, to get those wild card spots. It's going to be tough. Like, already you have the Angels. Let's say Texas wins the division. You have the Angels and the Astros, and then you have the 3, maybe Boston too, but at least 3 AL East teams. Yep. Competing for the 3 wild card spots. So 2 of those teams, Orioles, Yankees, Blue Jays, Angels, Astros, 2 of them are not getting in the playoffs. So for the Angels to climb above 3 of those teams, like to be in the top 3 of those 5, climb above 2 of them, was already hard. And now, yeah, it's going to be that much harder. From a fantasy spin, do you keep Trout or do you cut him? Do you hold Trout for 6 weeks in hopes of getting 6 weeks?
All right. It's July 4th today.
Yeah.
You're looking best case scenario, beginning of August, right?
That's absolute best. Like I said, I was going to split the difference on your 4 to 8 and say, do I hold for 6 basically till the middle of August to get 6, maybe from the middle of August on?
I think so. You know, I think we often use the NFBC as a starting point because in other leagues, you've got IL spots. You've got an IL spot, you park them there for sure. In a league where you got six, you know, man, brutal. You know, in a league where you've got 6 guys, you know, seven reserve spots, or like my AL only home league where we have 3 reserve spots and no IL spots. That's where it's. I think I'd almost certainly cut them. I think, but in the 7-team NFBC main event, yeah, I think I'm holding him unless, like, say I'm already got 2 or 3 other people. Say I had Clayton, I'm unlucky and also have Clayton Kershaw. I'm holding Kershaw and cutting Trout, or maybe I'm holding both for another week or two and seeing how what other chips fall. But there comes a point where you got to not stash. I think I'm not quite there yet with that. But yeah, 8 weeks. If he doesn't come back, if you knew right now, you told me he's not coming back till September 4th, I might cut.
Okay, so I agree, and I could give the cop out answer. I thought I could give the cop out answer of it depends how many other injured players I have. Obviously, how about this one? If O'Neill Cruz was on your waiver wire, because he's been on some of mine, kind of off and on in the last few weeks.
Yep.
Who would you stash, Mike Trout or O'Neill Cruz? They're both coming back in August. O'Neill Cruz might be sooner,
and he'll run.
It depends. Yeah, so maybe again, now a bit of a cop out answer. It might depend on whether you want power or speed. Although O'Neill Cruz can hit home runs. Like he
could also hit 210. That's
absolutely for sure. So that's an issue. Although Trout was only hitting 263, so it's not like Trout.
That's a bad year for Trout, though.
It is. Yeah. Well, this was my follow up. My eventual question here was going to be like, what is Mike Trout now? Like as far as fantasy goes. So he's turning 32 next month. Not old, but not young. He's going to have now another season where he spends a significant amount of time on the IL, and whether you say it's his fault or just unlucky or whatever, it's still like, it seems like basically every season he's missing a good chunk of games going back now for several years, forgetting 2020 in the 60-game season.
Yeah. Right.
You know, so if I don't know how you don't say that he's injury prone at this point in his career. He doesn't steal bases. This year, he's not really hitting for average. Like, how early of a draft pick is Mike Trout next year? We seem to keep putting him in the second round, but I don't see a justification to do that anymore.
Yeah, he was at the 2-3 turn, if I recall correctly, in the main this past
once
year.
All the pitchers got pushed up. So I agree with you. I think he was kind of like early to mid-second in February and early March drafts, and then once all the pitchers got pushed up, obviously he and all the other hitters fall.
I was wrong. His ADP in the main was 22. His range was 10 to 29, so he didn't drop into the third even once.
That's mid-second, even with a lot of pitchers getting pushed up in the main.
Yeah.
Like is he 42 next year for an ADP in the main? Like round is he getting to round 3? I don't know I don't think he should.
Yeah, I think he does because of, I mean, he's Mike Trout.
I think Trout.
I think that aspect of it still buffers that up just a little bit. But I'll tell you, anybody that got burned by this injury, I mean, it's not like he did anything wrong or you did anything wrong. But at the same time, anyone that had to deal with that this year is probably steering elsewhere next year, especially because they know they're not getting those stolen bases, and knowing how many stolen bases we need. I think that's the other big thing. We need so many more stolen bases. So you get a guy that doesn't run, it's really tough. It's I think that's the hidden factor about that there. Just to pull up, like, say, I'm going to pull up the overall main event standings, just to get like 80th percentile. So there's 795 teams, right? So you need to, so you need to be like 636. There's you need to be in the top 160 basically in stolen bases to do that there. So I'm going to break down the categories. Keep talking this out here a little bit, but basically, category stats, blah blah blah. Here we go. First of all, first place in the main and steals is 188. That was like the finish last year.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You basically need at this point in the season, you need around 100 stolen bases to be in the 80th percentile. That's crazy.
That's right. And you're still not, and to get those 100 steals, like you're still not getting many from your catcher, and you're not, maybe getting many from your first baseman, depending on who you have. But so you need to get those steals from your outfielders and your middle infielders. Like I said, maybe you can get them from a corner outfielder. And I know there are the Real Mutos and the Varshos, but for the most part. So anyway, so Trout, he would leave you lacking in that area. It's just, I feel like every year, I haven't had Trout on a team, and I don't even remember the last time I had Trout on a team. Back in the day, I used to have him ranked first or second or third. So whether I had him on my team was just whether I got the top pick or not. But the last few years, I keep projecting him out to like 120 games, and then he comes out as, I don't know, like a fourth or fifth round pick, and then I never get him. I don't see any reason why I'll do anything different this year. Like, he's going to finish with probably 120 games. If this doesn't go well, he could finish with 100.
Yep.
So he and Kershaw have some similarities to me in that, like, when you drafted either one of them, Kershaw a little more so, but you drafted either, when they both went on the IL in the last few days, like when you drafted either one of them, you knew they would be good on a per game basis. It was just a matter of how many games you were going to get from them.
Right. And honestly, the timing of the injury is important too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to go, well, I mean, if you're in labor, for instance, if you drafted Mike Trout in LABR, you've got a whole week of a dead spot. Well, minus a day plus they were only playing 5 games this week anyhow. That makes it even harder. So, because they have the 3 games against the Padres, a day off, 2 games against the Dodgers, and then a day off on Sunday. So very weird schedule there too. But yeah, it's just you're taking that dead spot there. It's really rough dealing with that.
If I want to spin it positively for Trout owners who are feeling glum right now, you know what? Like you said, this week they only had 5 games. There's the first week of the injury soaked up. It was only a 5-game week. Next week, All-Star break and just a weekend. You can work without Trout for a weekend. That already soaks up 2 of the weeks. So if I want to spin it positive, that soaks up 2 of the weeks. You got him for the Coors Field Series recently, about a week and a half ago, where he hit 2 home runs.
Right.
So, you've gotten some recent production out of him. The first 2 weeks of whatever window it is will fly by, and it won't hurt your production much, and then just go from there.
Yeah. Angels called up Joe Adell. Are you interested?
I'd pick him up. I'd say that's where I'm interested. I would pick him up. I would not race to the waiver wire to get him. That's a shot for those listening at Jeff, because when we signed on here before we started recording the podcast, we had to wait a minute because he was racing to the waiver wire in our Yahoo Friends and Family League to get him.
Well, it would have been an hour. I don't want someone else to.
You wouldn't have got him. If you had waited till the end of the podcast, it wouldn't have been me, but you wouldn't have got him.
Right. And no, there's nothing stopping me from picking up during the podcast. So I guess I could have waited a little bit and not raced, but
his strikeout rate in AAA is really no better this season. Like, not much different than it was the previous 2 seasons. So that's always been the biggest concern with him, is the strikeout rate. The walk rates, it's not much different either. He hits a lot of home. He's great in AAA. He's really good. So
Salt Lake City is a great place to be great.
Yeah, this is the 3rd year in a row in AAA with an OPS over 900. He's really good in AAA. We'll see if it translates. But he does have pop, and he can steal the odd base. So in a 15-team league, he's a no-brainer to add. But in a 12, I would add him. There's probably someone kind of lame on your bench that you could cut.
Yeah, probably so.
The waiver wire rate now is really, I don't know, how you found, because you weren't on with, you were on, but you weren't on with Scott on Sunday night. I felt like you and Rob didn't even talk that much about the waiver wire, and I think there's a reason for that. The waiver wire on Sunday was really boring.
It was probably the weakest list of players available that I've seen, and the top player, just Jordan Westburg, got hurt.
Yeah,
and right on top of that there. So even worse. I don't know how serious he is because I didn't get him, so I haven't been tracking too close there. But in fact, let's bring up Jordan Westburg right now. Let's talk about him because, you know, I didn't spend a lot of time on him. In fact, he actually played today, so he's fine. He hurt his hand, he got hit by a pitch. He had a 679 OPS in his first 22 plate appearances. That's nothing. But what type of player is Jordan Westburg anyhow? Was he worth the big investment? And obviously his investment wasn't big, in part because he wasn't that player, and also because we didn't have as much money left.
That's right. Yeah. I don't think, like, when we talked last week, I think our stance was kind of, he's an automatic pickup in a 15, but not someone who you go high for. Mm-hmm. And in a 12, it just depends whether you needed a middle infielder or not. And I don't think anything's moved me off that stance. In fact, maybe I've even moved down on that a bit, just because he hasn't gotten off to a bad start. 2 strikeouts, 2 walks. It's fine. And like you said, like 679 OPS isn't good. It's not horrendous though, or embarrassing. So, that's kind of where I'm still at with him. This week, I did bid on him in most leagues, but I did have teams this week where the FAAB options were so bad that I didn't really bid on anyone. And it wasn't for lack of looking or lack of consideration. I just liked what I had on my roster better. And there are other leagues where my highest bid was like $2.
Right.
I just didn't see anyone who I felt like was worth much of a bid. So
I only had one league where I had a decent amount of change and the desire to add them. And I bid about 55 and didn't get them. And I was
didn't get them. Wow. I thought that would get them.
Well, in some leagues it would have.
Yeah.
But in that one, he went for like 120.
Oh,
but,
wow.
Most other leagues, like a lot of the pickups this year have been middle infielders. Ellie, of course.
Yep.
Matt McLean has been another one that's been really good to pick up. I've in some of those leagues, I've actually had strength there to begin with too. It's not like I would, if I had to try to, if I would have replaced Tim Anderson with him. I'm done with him. And if I get the next Jordan Westburg or some sort of equivalent of a prospect, I'm not going to let Anderson stay in the way of adding him. Let's just put it that way. Referring to other pickups, we were talking about Joe Adell. Uncle Ted says, give me Oscar Colas over Adell. And I was going to talk about Colas. He got called up today. I think he's batting second. This is his second go around. I know that. With the White Sox, he's going to be in right field. I mean, they're going to have to figure it out a little bit, but I think the Gavin Sheets experience has run its course. So we might start to see, a little bit of a situation there where we might get a chance there to see a little bit more of Colas. So to see the White Sox start to play their younger players.
Yeah, which is disappointing for this guy because I put Gavin Sheets in my Tout Wars lineup this week. I was annoyed. And you know who I put him in over? Nick Senzel. And what did Nick Senzel do this afternoon?
Just hit a 3-run homer today. Yeah. Anyway, but Senzel doesn't play every day. So
he doesn't. And they had some right-handers, the White Sox, on their schedule, and Sheets can hit righties. We'll see. Maybe Sheets will still come through for me this week. But
yeah,
I had seen this news before roster set in Tout yesterday. Anyways, so like you said, Uncle Ted said give him Colas over Adell. I will say that Adell has been much better than Colas in the minors this year. Like better as far as hitting more home runs, hitting home runs at a higher rate because they've played different amount of games, stealing bases at a higher rate. Colas strikes out a little bit less often, but he walks a lot less. That's a debate for sure. I'd say most people would take Colas over Adell for the simple fact that Colas hasn't burned them as much as Adell has.
Yeah, I hear you.
People are just giving up on Adell. They're like, oh, yawn, here comes Joe Adell again.
I've been guilty of that a little bit there. I think crushing in Salt Lake City is the new big in Japan. It's one of those where, okay, yeah, great. He's done in Salt Lake City. What does that even mean? But I will say there's been growth with Adell. His strikeout rate was 31% last year. It's 26 this year. It's not great, but it's improvement. And we want to see that. So I think Adell can be serviceable, but he is going to hurt your batting average probably.
Yep.
He could also hit you 20 pounds. He's capable of hitting 20 homers over the second half. Probably won't play enough to do that, but he's got that sort of power.
Yep, absolutely. So comparing the two, Colas is maybe more likely to hit for average. Probably is. Adell's more likely to hit to give you a few steals, and maybe a little. Their power probably is pretty similar. Maybe Adell's a little more likely to hit for power, I would say.
Yeah,
At
maybe so.
this stage in the game.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
We opened with a big injury item in Anaheim. There's another one in San Francisco. Unfortunately, Thairo Estrada got hit by a pitch Sunday night. He's got a fractured left hand. That's a long-term thing. It's got to be. I mean, just maybe the location and the severity of the fracture matter a little bit, but this is pretty bad news.
And then that made me think about whether he's a drop. I don't have a timeline on him yet, but I bet it'll be similar to Trout's. Mm-hmm. And I would say Estrada, I mentioned to you in our notes that Estrada is interesting to me in the sense that I kind of liked him during draft season. I have him on some teams. There were people who were definitely not interested in him, who felt like he could not sustain. There was he can't sustain what he did last year. There's the never Gabe Kapler. He's going to, right? He's going to be platooned all the time. And I was kind of, I don't know. He played a decent amount last year and seemed to do fine. Like, I think he'll open this season playing a fair amount, and he has, and he's played well. He's played a little bit better than last year, actually. Was on pace for, about 15 to 20 home runs and about 35 steals. It's a really nice season. So it's going to be interrupted. Whether you hold Estrada or not, I think just depends on your steals race.
Yeah, I think so. And
he's not special anywhere else. He scores his fair share of runs, but he's not special anywhere else to hold. So it just depends if he needs steals or not.
Yeah, I want to wait to see that timeline. And chances are you'll probably have until the end of the week to make that decision. But we're probably, if it's 4 weeks, then I'm holding. If it's 8 weeks, I'm not.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Yeah. So who steps in San Francisco? I mean, I think that's the other tricky aspect of this here. I see Brett Wisely and Casey Schmidt as your top options there as a platoon. Neither really do a whole lot. Maybe Wilmer Flores plays some second base. Flores has been playing mostly first when he does play. I mean, Wisely was, he's doing well in AAA this year. Had a good run, but it's AAA. It's the Pacific Coast League. I mean, it doesn't really usually do that much for me. Wisely's a guy that doesn't have a lot of draft pedigree, but isn't on our top prospect list. So not someone that I'm excited about.
Yeah, my first thought was that it would be Schmidt. He started at second base and hit ninth yesterday. Mm-hmm. I would like to see Flores get a little more run during this time. Like, he typically, when the Giants play him, he typically hits okay.
Sure.
He's got 772 OPS this year. Like, that would look nice in their lineup. It's basically it's a little higher, but basically the same as Estrada. So he doesn't steal bases, but he hits at a similar amount, but I know he's not necessarily the fielder that some of those other players are. So they'll probably have to balance that out. But I could see him getting a few starts. He hasn't played second much this year. Right. He did play 61 games there last year.
He's not fast. No, he's not a stolen base threat at all. Probably doesn't have a whole lot of range. So defense might be still something that holds Flores back just a little bit there, unfortunately there. The San Diego Padres have made a move. I think they just happened. They designated Nelson Cruz for assignment. There's a little bit of a surprise, but then you look at the numbers that he's putting up, and yeek, not great. And it's a problem that the Padres have had from the bottom part of their lineup all year long. 245, 283, 399. I mean, there's some power, but the on base is a killer. 46 Ks, only 6 walks. He used to be a guy that would draw a lot of walks.
Yeah,
that seems to be going. I mean, he's 42. I mean, time did eventually catch up to him. Great run in his season. He actually just turned 43, so happy birthday. Yeah. Here's your walking papers.
Yeah, they didn't cut him off. Born on Canada Day, so a true patriot. Yeah. Nelson Cruz. So yeah, they didn't cut him on his birthday. A sub 700 OPS 2 years in a row. When you don't play in the field, you can't have that happen. When you're a power hitter who's supposed to get on base, like, you can't have that happen. I mean, really, I felt like he was in there to hit lefties well. This is probably what got him. Like, he was in there to hit lefties well. He's got a 666 OPS against lefties this season. He's actually been worse against lefties, which is the majority of his plate appearances. So he couldn't hit lefties. That's what they had him there for. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they looked around the front office and said, like, we can't carry a 43-year-old. Last week, we could carry a 42-year-old. This week we can't carry a 43-year-old. Last week he was only 42. This week, now, come on, guys, he's 43. So can't carry
pushing it now. Yeah,
exactly. So you can't carry a 43-year-old. But no, seriously, you can't carry a veteran who can't play the field, especially the way baseball's trended. And there's been a lot of articles about how baseball's trended a little more towards athleticism and versatility and things like that. If you're going to be a pure designated hitter, you better be able to hit.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I think he's played his last game.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah, I have a soft spot for him. Some of my better teams won me some leagues in the past. He's always was a bargain,
Mm-hmm.
but the last couple of years have been pretty rough for him. Padres, I mean, they won last. They play last night. Yeah, they beat the Angels. They thumped the Angels actually
Mm-hmm.
last night.
Yeah.
There was the Trout when Trout got hurt in that game, but
Yeah.
they lost 2 out of 3 to our Reds over the weekend. And I know it's not your Reds, but I still like to say our Reds because Scott
It's fine.
has adopted
We're all
them
on
at
the
least.
bandwagon.
Yes, we are. Including getting rallying to tie in the 8th against the Reds and then giving up right in the bottom of the 8th. Just felt very on brand for the Padres for this type of season that they're having.
Absolutely. The Padres and the Mets, those are the two teams that just went. I mean, my Blue Jays are disappointing right now a little bit, but the Padres and the Mets are two teams that just went so aggressively after winning right now, have all these big names, and not just big names that like the Jays have some big names who have come up through the system. These teams have big names who they've acquired. Padres bring in Xander Bogaerts and bring in Soto last year, and it's just not working right now.
No, not at all. I will throw in the Cardinals in that pile. And I think the White Sox to a lesser extent, although they didn't really try as hard, but they're expected to be decent and just aren't. But yeah, I mean, the Cardinals, I mean, Adam Wainwright got crushed again today. They just got Marlins just went ahead 10-0 in that game today.
Wow.
Adam Wainwright. I mean, I made this comment about Luke Weaver, and then Weaver pitched well against the Nats yesterday, but kind of well at least. And I kept on asking, how long can the Reds keep doing this with Weaver? The Cardinals, how long can they keep doing this with Adam Wainwright? What a great career. And I know he's a great human being. Everybody loves him. How long can they afford to keep rolling him out? I mean, they're about to fall to 15 games below 500. They're 35-49 coming in this game. Only the Nationals and the Rockies are worse than the National League. Think about that. I mean, they are the 13th team in the National League right now, and they're expected to walk all over the National League Central. I know, they still aren't dead in the NL Central, but even the NL Central starting to pick up with the Reds and Brewers playing well.
Yeah, I think they're pretty dead.
Yeah. And I think only Marmol is going to be gone at some point in time. I got to think that, there's just got to be something that's got to give with this team.
Yeah, I think they're done. I think to answer your question, you said how much longer can they keep rolling Wainwright out there? Well, if you want to try to catch up and make the playoffs, he shouldn't make any more starts. But if you're giving up, then you could start him for the rest of the season and just have him stink. And at least he doesn't have to end his career in the bullpen. And you start him for the rest of the season, and he finishes the year with a 5 ERA, and he retires. And it's ugly, but at least he starts. He probably would have the odds quality start in there, or maybe get some batted ball luck or something. But he can't strike anyone out anymore. He's done. And but I do think the Cardinals are done. Like, I think it's time for the Cardinals to evaluate themselves as sellers, and they can regroup quickly. I don't think they have to be done as in they trade it all away and go into a 3-year rebuild, especially in that division. But I think they're done. I think it's time to figure out who they want on their roster next year and trade the other players away. And there's nothing else to do with Wainwright. No one's trading for Wainwright, even as a bullpen arm.
Yeah, well,
like no contender. Like, Wainwright's not going to get another shot. He's just going to retire, I think, at the end of this year as a Cardinal. I can't see them cutting him. I think maybe they just keep rolling him out there.
Yeah. Does Goldschmidt get moved at the deadline? Joel Hennard asks. I mean, there's that's a question that I think, he signed his deal in March of 2019. It was a 5-year extension. So I don't know if it's like I have to check to see. I think he's got one more year actually.
Yeah.
Because he signed an extension, not a fresh contract. So it might be through 2024, but still, I got to think that that you trade him now while he's got a little bit more currency. I mean, maybe that people are worried about the size of his contract, but at the same time, I mean, man, he would be something that could fetch something at least. He is signed through 2024. I just confirmed on Baseball Reference. So 5 years, 130 million. In today's baseball, that's not even that bad.
No. And he's playing well. I think for the Cardinals, it depends just on answering the question of, what kind of team do you want to be in 2024? If you want to be a team that's trying to win the division, then you probably keep Goldschmidt because you probably don't get enough for him just with 1 year left on his contract to make it worth it. If you're okay with maybe at least like a bit of a rebuild, then I would say then it makes a lot of sense to trade him. And I have noticed like there are teams out there who could take a first baseman, especially with the DH spot open now. Not that he would be the DH, but with their ability to move their first baseman to DH. But there are some years where I look at the contending teams and like they're all loaded at first base. When I took a quick trip around some of the contending teams this year, I didn't feel like that was the case. I do feel like there's teams out there who would be interested in adding Goldschmidt to their lineup. And like I said, don't have a star at first base.
Right. And I think Jordan Hicks has got to be a trade. He's someone that will draw some value, draw some interest. I think they got to figure out their outfield, maybe trade one of their 17 outfielders. I don't know if anyone's going to be banging down the door for Dylan Carlson, but the thing is, every time the Cardinals trade away an outfielder, it becomes a star elsewhere. That's the problem. Randy Arozarena, Adolis Garcia, even Lane Thomas.
Yep. Yeah. Has been really good. The Cardinals also have these not very good, but serviceable starting pitchers that maybe some teams, Miles Michaelis, would someone take Steven Matz? It's been pretty bad, but he takes, I don't know.
No, because of the contract.
Yeah. And he hasn't even been starting for them recently. I wondered if someone would plug him in as their fifth starter. Probably not. Would someone want Jack Flaherty? I think they'd be better off to keep him and try to rebuild his trade value.
I think someone will look at him and say, we can fix him.
Maybe. Yeah.
I could see that.
So,
but it's going to be at a, we can fix him sort of price though, too.
That's right. So when you start talking about trading these players away, then you are looking at a rebuild because you're looking at not having a rotation next year when you go into the off season. You're Jordan Montgomery and not much else.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at you, Cincinnati, about looking for league average starting pitchers. That would be pretty handy right now.
Right.
And they won't cost you as much either.
Right.
I don't think you have to trade away Encarnacion Strand. You don't have to trade away Noel Marte to get him. You're looking for that level of starting pitcher. I mean, that would still be a massive upgrade over what they're rolling out.
Absolutely. I mentioned Michaelis. Like he might not play great in that park, but Michaelis is someone who doesn't walk a lot of batters. He's got a 4.04 FIP this year. Like he's not good, but he's okay. He had a 3.29 ERA last year and through 200 innings. Like he's
that would
someone
be useful.
Absolutely. If you're in a really tight race, like he's someone who could help that team get, just that one or two extra wins. And like I said, probably wouldn't cost a ton on the trade market, but I mean, he hasn't been good this year. So I do have to say that he's an innings eater.
Yeah, he is an innings eater for sure about that. Hey, I know you wanted to spend some time talking about the Tigers. We're going to do that. But before we do that, quick note from our sponsors. We've got a new sponsor, the Home Run Index. We'll talk about them real quick here. We know the weather can impact how far a ball can fly, but we never know what all that heat and humidity or cold air is really doing to the ball. The Home Run Forecast Index gives us an easy way to determine how good or bad the air is for ball flight. The index is calculated by measuring stadium-specific weather conditions and is displayed on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the most unfavorable for good ball flight and 10 indicating the most favorable air. There's a strong correlation between the index and the number of runs scored per game and the number of home runs hit. Games that have the highest index, 10 for the whole game, average over 10 runs and 2.8 homers over the course of the year. An index is created for each game so you can see what it'll be in any stadium and how the weather's influence might change over the course of the game, as well as the wind direction. Right now, you can get access to the HRF premium site for only $5 a month and see what the index will look like for every hour of every game. Go to homerunforecast.com right now to sign up. That's homerunforecast.com. Also, we are on the Blue Wire Network. We're thrilled to be there. Here are their ads. All right. Thank you for your indulgence. Let's talk a little Tigres. We spent a lot of time with our Reds and what a feel-good story they are and what a miracle they are. Could you suggested maybe the Tigers could be another miracle too?
Well, I mean, a different kind of miracle. But okay, when you look at the standings, the AL Central, like we talked about how bad the NL Central is. The AL Central is so much worse.
Oh yeah,
Like it's like
for
20
sure.
wins as a division behind the NL Central. It makes the NL Central look like the AL East. Like the AL Central is so bad. Like the Twins are winning it with exactly a 500 record
Yeah.
going into today. There's no team in the Central with a winning record in their last 10 games. So no one's even on fire. You've got a Twins team that can pitch, at least starting pitch. But no, I'd say they can pitch, but their lineup is like, not very good. You've got a Cleveland team that can pitch, but when you look at their lineup, like it was supposed to be pretty good. It's been awful. Every team in the AL Central is bottom 9 in baseball going into today in team OPS. Every single team. So the Tigers offense sucks, but so does the rest of the division. They're getting Tarek Skubal back today.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting Eduardo Rodriguez, who was pitching lights out. They're getting him back tomorrow. And he was even looking on his rehab assignment. So he seems like, he's got potential. Michael Lorenzen's been okay for them this year.
All-star Michael Lorenzen. Let's put some respect on that name.
All right. Yeah. So I guess now saying he's been okay this year is a bit of an insult, but Reese Olson, I think
4.28 ERA. He's been okay.
Yeah. That ERA was in the 3s before his Coors Field start last week. I'll give him that at least. It was still in the 3s before he started at Coors last week. So, but either way, Reese Olson is showing like a little bit of something if they need him. Matt Manning hasn't been a complete, sink. He's been not good, but not he's kind of what you're picturing for the Reds. Like he's eating some innings. Anyways, and they're getting Riley Green back probably right after the All-Star break. He's headed out on a rehab assignment. Check for him on your waiver wire if you're interested, if you could use an outfielder. I don't think that this lineup can be good enough to make the playoffs, but they're 4.5 games out of a division that basically it seems like no one really, it's just wide open. No one wants to win it. It's there for the taking.
Yeah, that's
it would be, sure. I guess, would that be going into, I was trying to think going into the season, would the Tigers winning the division be even more of a surprise than the Reds winning their division? Actually, I don't think it would be. The Reds, I think, are such a surprise. But when you see this Reds thing in action, it actually makes some sense. Just some of these prospects have really hit the ground running.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes some sense. Like you look at the Reds lineup now and you're like, oh, this is a pretty good lineup. So it makes sense. The Tigers, this would be like an all-time bad playoff team.
Yeah, it would be. It would be.
But it's possible. They're getting back Skubal and Rodriguez is a lot. Like that's 2 pitchers who could be better than like anyone who gets traded at the deadline.
I actually picked up Matt Manning in some leagues. So
okay. You're on board.
Yeah. I think it was pointed out in the chat that, look at the teams he's been facing, and it's true. He's been facing some really bad teams. Yeah. So that's part of it there. But absolutely. I think he's very interesting. I was trying to pull up a screenshot and I couldn't do it right. So I'm not going to do that. But basically the Tigers depth chart, if you go to their depth chart page, look at their starting pitchers, and it's a sea of red. I mean, you've got Rodriguez is coming off the IL and Skubal is coming off the IL. So that's going to change soon, but Faedo's there. Olson's day-to-day. Turnbull, 60-day IL. Mize still 60-day IL. Matthew Boyd, unfortunately, 60-day IL. These are all the starters. There's even 4 injured relievers as well. 3 of them long-term. And it's just, they're doing this with duct tape. It's really amazing to see. I mean, and granted, when we're saying amazing to see, they're still like, 7 games under 500?
Yeah. When we say they're doing this,
9 games under 500.
What we're saying is they're not the Royals. That's what we're basically saying they're doing. They're not being completely horrible.
Better than the White Sox, though. I mean, that's something.
Almost the one thing I'll say about the Tigers, if they were to just cheaply add at the deadline, they have so many bad spots in their lineup that adding like any major league average players would like help them. Like Jonathan Scope is their third baseman. He's hitting 209. He doesn't walk. Like getting anyone to be their new third baseman who's just a major league average third baseman would make that lineup so much better.
What if I told you that their top prospect, Fred, is a third baseman, and he just recently got promoted to AAA? Guy by the name of Colt Keith. He's our number 25 prospect.
Bring him up in August. Do the old management thing where you're like, hey, we just made our deadline acquisition. The Jays have tried to do that fast one on us before here in Toronto. We don't trade for anyone at the deadline. Then we bring up a prospect and we're like, he is our acquisition.
Yes. The time-honored tradition.
Fans.
Yeah.
So anyways, Spencer Torkelson's shown some signs of life.
Mm-hmm.
Zach McKinstry's been an okay leadoff hitter against righties. I don't know. It probably won't work. But nobody else is taking control of that division.
No, you're right. You're
Yeah.
right. And the Twins, every time we think they're going to, they lose another player. I mean, some of it's not their fault. They've been very snake bit, but injuries happen, but they've been especially snake bit, it feels like.
I was going to say, I would say that the Twins, to me, Cleveland is the least vulnerable. If I was looking at a team that I think can just plow along at 500, it might be Cleveland, because the Twins, like, they've had pretty good health in their rotation and they still can't really get over 500. Like Joe Ryan's been great. Sonny Gray's been great. And, Pablo Lopez has been fine, and Bailey Ober's been solid. And like they've been fine, and the lineup isn't good. They still can't really get going. The only thing I'll say about Cleveland is they have so many pitchers that they could actually withstand an injury or two. Well, they have, right?
Yeah.
And people have debated, should Cal Quantrill even be in their rotation, because they have better pitching that's not in their rotation right now, probably better pitchers than him. So they got more bad news on Tristan McKenzie, which kind of stinks, but he might be back at some point this season. We'll see. I don't know. And I did think that Cleveland's lineup was going to be okay, and it's been really, really bad. So maybe it still has the potential to be okay at some point. But to me, Cleveland, I think, maybe is in the best position to win the division, because that pitching depth, even beyond their starting five. But it would be a fun September if these terrible Tigers were still hanging around in the race.
I think so too.
I loved when you said, what they're doing, or something to that effect.
They're doing this.
They're doing this. Now, no, they're playing at a level where if they were in probably any other division, we would have already written them off.
Yeah, their offense is pretty pathetic.
Yeah, everything I said about them, I could say to the White Sox. The White Sox are just not a fun story at all, because if the White Sox get their act together and win the division, I think you'll just be like, yeah, well, obviously, like, they should have been better all along.
Yeah, well, and the White Sox are just not fun to watch. They make stupid mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, I love their announcing pair. I love I love Steve Stone. And then God, I always get his, the play-by-play guy. He also does a lot of stuff for ESPN. He's excellent. And yet I'm forgetting his name because I'm just really a bad human being. But anywho,
I agree with you that they are not fun.
No,
at all. And Tim Anderson's been abysmal.
Oh,
Andrew Benintendi has one home run.
Everybody could have guessed the Benintendi is a bust signing, though. When that's your big 4-year contract that you signed this offseason, whatever. I mean, Benintendi.
I mean, he hasn't even been that bad for Andrew Benintendi. Like, he has a 720 OPS. That's actually not far off, what he usually does. So he hasn't even been a total disaster. It's just like, absolutely, like, it's just grinding his way of hitting singles, on the odd double on his way to, a 280 batting average, a 700 OPS. It's just not fun. And even their starters, I don't know. Like, Lance Lynn is just one frustration after another. I don't even find them fun. Dylan Cease hasn't been awesome this year,
which a lot of people called. By the way, Jason Benetti. It was driving me nuts. I couldn't remember his name. Jason Benetti. He's great. Phenomenal broadcaster. Love him. Luis Roberts, fun. He is fun.
Oh, very fun. Yeah.
Eloy could be fun.
Yeah.
Andrew Vaughn has just
been okay. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. Anderson's been brutal. Yohan Moncada is either hurt or bad. Lance Lynn we've celebrated Lance Lynn Day many a time here, and not only as an imposing hitter. There was the 16 strikeout game, which was just kind of weird, but anyways, just not a fun team to watch. And they make all these mistakes and mental errors.
Yes.
And,
so if they got their act together and squeaked out like a 84 win season and squeaked out the division, I think you'd just be like, meh. Like, oh, fine, you guys finally got out of your own way for a little while. Whereas if the Tigers did it would come with some real enthusiasm.
Yep, exactly.
So, like what's happening with the Reds, except not to the same degree. Like, the Reds are on a real heater. I don't think the Tigers can even get on that heater.
Probably not.
And wouldn't have maybe the fun offensive players. Like, Ellie De La Cruz had 4 more hits, I believe, today.
Yes, he did. As did Spencer Steer. Jonathan India hit 2 homers. The Reds stole like 5 bases. He got caught twice too. But like, Fraley came in as a pinch hitter and stole 2 bases late in the game. So you were like, he's not starting against Patrick Corbin because he's a lefty. Oh, so frustrating. Still got 2 stolen bases in the game. I mean, it's amazing. we're bringing up the White Sox. We're getting close to the trade deadline. I think we'll see Giolito go. I think he's a free agent at the end of the year. Eloy could probably maybe be traded, although his contract might make it harder. But I do think that they're a team that's maybe one of the more interesting sellers out there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Lance Lynn is another one. Like, he's been awful, but the advanced stats do show he should be a little better than he's been. He still strikes out a lot of batters. So
yeah,
would some team say, you know what, this guy has a long track record of success. He's really good for the past few years going into this year. He was someone who's considered quite reliable. He still takes the ball every fifth turn. We think we can unlock something in him. Like, he could be traded as well.
Yeah.
And maybe they just start over from this kind of blah group.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You got to start over for the blah owner in the first place.
Yeah.
So Reinsdorf is right at the top, head of the snake. He's the problem.
Yeah. There's just no energy in this group. And bringing Elvis Andrus back and expecting him to do what he did last year, like, you could see that coming a mile away. That was never going to happen.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Like you said, Benintendi in, Mike Clevenger, that guy, like, I could say some bad things about him. Like, he's not a good pitcher. He doesn't seem to be a good guy.
Yep.
That's another one they brought in. He wasn't terrible for
it. It was on brand.
Absolutely. Yep. Yes. That's it. He was on brand. He was Mike Clevenger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get happy again. Let's start talking pitchers.
Yeah.
Blake Snell, a good story lately.
Yeah, he is on fire right now. As hot as any pitcher in baseball. Some of the advanced stats do say that he's been a little too hot, but that's okay. Like, nobody's going to go start after start giving up 1 run, 0 runs, 1 run, 0 runs, couple runs every once in a while. But double-digit strikeouts in 4 of his last 5. He didn't get there last night, but that's okay. Base runners were back up a bit last night, 11 of them in 5 innings against the Angels. But it was a lopsided win. Maybe he was just kind of working with what he had just to get his team through to the finish line. So, yeah, he's as hot as about any starter. His strand rate is high right now. If I was writing a sell high trade type article, which I do once a week, but I'm not really going in that direction on this week's article, he might be one of my sell highs, just because he's been on such a run right now. And we've seen Blake Snell go up and down. But good for those who went with Blake Snell this year as a bounce back, because right now it's happening.
It is. It really is. So...
And I mean, I guess I shouldn't call him a bounce back, because his numbers aren't that much different really than last year. It's just, he's just on a great run right now.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Yeah.
Other guy that's been on a great run lately is Bryan Woo for the Mariners. Really pitched well the other day against last night, I think, against the Giants.
Yep.
Really looking, he had that horrific debut against the Rangers. Yep. And then after that, he's been dominating. He's getting strikeouts. He's pitching really well. Held his own against Logan Webb, and then the Mariners rallied late in that one. Camilo Doval had a bad one, but Woo's got that cutter, and it's looking really good. He dominates righties. If he can just do better against lefties, look out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What I've been kind of promoting Woo in some of the Yahoo articles recently, because he's not getting picked up in those shallower leagues, and he should. His strikeout to walk rate's just so good, and he's not giving up a lot of home runs. Even in that terrible debut against Texas, no homers, only 1 walk. Like, he struck out 4 in 2 innings. He had maybe just some bad batted ball luck with the 7 hits allowed. But even in that really bad start, it's not like Texas took him deep 3 times, or he walked 4 batters or something like that in 2 innings. So, he's been like really good the last few starts. Like, I can't believe how under-owned he is in some of the, like, he's obviously fully owned in all the leagues we play in and the NFBC leagues and everything, but I think he could be really good the rest of the way. And I can't believe to the degree to which he's not getting picked up on some of the popular sites.
Yeah, I can too. Heart Foundation saying they're talking about shutting down Woo, but I can't find a link on that one. So if you got a link on that one, let me check that out. I'd love to see it. To kind of delve into that a little bit more.
Like, if they're fully shutting him down, that would be wild. If
it would have to be an injury or something. But so I don't think
if they're more talking about skipping a couple starts to have him throw on the side, whatever, limited his innings. But fully shutting him down, that would be news to me as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to say in the chat room, please post the link here if you've got it there. But I'd love to read more on that article there. But anyways, I think he's a pickup. Yeah. Hopefully I'm not wrong about that one there. Mitch Keller, been a great story, an all-star. Quietly, not so great lately.
Yeah, the last few starts, he's kind of gone back to, it's that old, like, a good start to the season can hide a poor summer or a poor finish, and vice versa. It takes a long time to work off a good start. So yeah, I mean, he had his ERA was in the mid twos around the end of May. It's in the mid threes now. I put in our notes. You probably have them in front of you right now, Jeff. What was my stat I gave you when I'm just pulling it up right now on his last few starts?
Last 8 starts, 4.94 ERA and a 1.35 WHIP.
Pretty Mitch Keller like.
Yeah.
In those 8 starts. Like, that's kind of the Mitch Keller that's kind of the Mitch Keller we saw before this year, right? Whips in the 1.4s and things like that. ERAs in the 4s. I don't know. Maybe are we too soon to anoint Mitch Keller as just a reliable? I was there. Like, I think most people were there. He had a stretch in late April into May where his strikeouts went 10, 8, 8, 13, 8, 8, 8. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And since then, the strikeouts are okay, but since
he's
then,
had one bad strikeout start, basically.
But a couple with 5. Like, it's not quite what it was. More walks. Again, recently, he had a few games where I don't know. Anyways, he's just.
How did you draw the 8 starts? Did you just go from his low point and then kind of went from there?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so it's
I think I started with May 26th.
Yeah.
I know and again, like, I know what it's like to cherry pick end dates and things like that for sure. But 8 starts is a decent amount where you could work off a bad start. Except you can't work it off because he had 4 other bad starts.
No, I agree. At least he's not giving up like a slew of long balls. I think in that
Yep, 6 homers and 8 starts, so not terrible. No, it's fine. 15 walks, so a couple walks a start. Not bad, not terrible. Yeah, about a strikeout per inning. BABIP was 321 in those starts, which isn't like great. Like, it's not super unlucky, but it probably trends towards a little unlucky. So maybe he's fine, but I bet out there are a lot of owners. I would be one of them if I had Mitch Keller, who are just leaving him in their lineup and not even thinking twice about him, figuring this guy's good. Like, look at his season-long numbers. I can't even consider taking him out. And at 15, you couldn't. But in a 12, the wrong matchup, I don't know. Maybe at least
even in that stretch, though, you look at so he gave up 4 runs, 5 runs, 4 earned against the Dodgers, but only 1 run in the previous start against the Padres. Only 1 run against the Marlins. So there's been brilliance mixed in with those.
Absolutely.
I think he's still a start, except for in extreme circumstances, sort of guy still, because who you have that's better. I think that's the other thing that's taken away. Even in a 12, I don't think they're readily findable.
No, you're probably right about that for sure. And his schedule in that 8 starts wasn't hard. And there's not really much rhyme or reason to it. So it's not like he had a bad start against the A's. So he had a bad start in San Fran, in Milwaukee. Like those are teams that like Milwaukee's not an easy place to pitch, but that's not a tough lineup this year, really. I don't know.
Milwaukee's like totally feast or famine, though. Remember, they like laid it on the Brewers like earlier in the season. They've done that every once in a while. They just explode. Yeah. And then there are other times where they're really, really bad, and they strike out a bunch on the road and all that against lefties, etc. So it's hard to kind of get a really good feel, rate stat wise, and I think in baseball too. It's kind of harder right now. Looking at like season averages, you can kind of go year to year. Currently, runs per game is 4.58 this year. It was 4.28 last year. Home run rate's a little bit up. K rate is actually slightly up because it does rise every year. And this is the second year we've had the no DH. So the no pitcher hitting. So that's why you're starting to see that. That's right. It took a drop last year and it's starting to climb again. It's just, it's still hard to hit in baseball, but it's not quite as hard this year. I feel like there's been more damage this year. So anyhow, I think you froze there for a second.
I froze on you, but now I'm back.
Yeah. You're like, I don't believe your rate stats. Forget that. No.
Your mid-rate stats. I was enjoying your rate stats. I actually thought that runs would be up a little bit more than you said. I think they're up 0.3 of a run a game.
Mm-hmm.
If you asked me to guess, I would have guessed. I would have guessed it a little bit higher.
Yeah, I hear you on that one there. Let's talk relievers. Good, happy fun time again. Evan Phillips. He was a guy that we didn't know was going to get the job, and we still don't have he's not like the full-time closer, but he's been good. He's been very good.
Yeah, I was kicking myself this morning for not getting more shares because I kind of had Phillips ranked highly when I put out my first set of projections and rankings, and then the industry got to me a little bit on this guy.
Yeah,
I'm blaming everyone else, where just no one was really believing him and in him as the closer. And I was like, yeah, you guys are probably right. Not you personally, Jeff, but you guys are probably right. And I kind of backed off. And I don't have many shares, and it's kind of gone how I thought, where he's not the closer, but he's a guy who closes enough that he'll probably finish the season with 20 saves.
Yeah, he's at 12 right now after getting one last night.
So unless they acquire like a surefire closer at the deadline, he probably gets to 20 saves, and maybe he gets to 25.
But the thing is, you're not getting like the benefit of the bargain. Like he doesn't get as many saves, you should get some wins, right? That's not the case. He's got one win on the year also. I guess it kind of speaks to how bad some other parts of the bullpen have been, that games can't get to him.
Yeah, maybe. And those can go in bunches. Like he could still end the season with kind of 4 or something, which is pretty typical for a reliever. When I projected him out in the offseason, because he's a good pitcher, and like right now he's got a 1.85 ERA and a 0.76 WHIP, and a solid strikeout rate, not a crazy strikeout rate for a reliever. But he kind of came out as someone where if he gets, say, 4 wins and 15 to 20 saves, he's pretty valuable. And I think that's where we're trending with him. And I don't know if the Dodgers are going to go out and get a full-fledged closer. They might, but I don't know if they will go get it. They might just get a couple more arms to add to the bullpen to mix and match with him.
Yeah.
Why can't he just be their closer for the rest of the season? He could be. Like he's certainly pitching. When they go out, if they went out and got a closer, that person's not going to be pitching any better than Evan Phillips has this year.
No, I tend to agree with you on that one there. But it adds length to their bullpen. They may just choose to say, okay, we can now use Phillips how we want, which is anywhere. That could be frustrating too. So I feel like no matter, unless they add like a lefty specialist, I feel like that whoever they add is going to make things more confusing, make things more difficult.
Maybe, yeah. When I do look at the closers who have a lot of saves this year, I don't think any of them are getting traded. Like most of them are on teams that are going to compete through the deadline. Like would Josh Hader get traded? I doubt it.
Good. It's happened.
It's possible.
It's happened before.
It happened.
I don't think the Brewers are going to trade Devin Williams. I see that in the chat. I don't think the Brewers are a seller at all. I think that they're, they're playing good ball right now too. As good as
for them. Yeah.
The thing is, our Reds have been playing very well, but so are the Brewers. Brewers are actually better in the last 10 than the Reds. So
there's the David Bednar thing, but only one team can acquire David Bednar, and he's been linked to every team with the winning record.
That's right,
basically. So maybe he ends up on the Dodgers, but again, there's probably only about a 10% chance of that happening because everybody could use David Bednar in some capacity in their bullpen. Maybe Boston loses a few and trades Kenley Jansen, and he goes back to LA. I don't know. A lot of these guys who have a lot of saves, at least, their teams are doing pretty well. So I don't think they're going to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Which means they bring in a couple arms, which means those aren't really just a couple guys, which means Phillips keeps his role.
Yeah. Maybe so.
Yeah.
We'll see. But it's we'll see something will break, unless the Mets really get going, they could be trading David Robertson. They could be yeah.
Does David Robertson go into the Dodgers bullpen and take over as a closer? I don't know if he does. I think he kind of maybe shares it. He kind of still the same thing. Maybe him and Phillips share it.
I could see it.
David Robertson's actually been pretty good this year. I'll give him credit for that. Like he's been better than a lot of people realize. He did blow a save recently, but he has been better than probably a lot of people realize. One of the better ERAs among pitchers with 10 saves or more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Padres and Mets are the teams to watch. See how they play in July. Yeah. They'll take this I suspect they'll take this all the way to the end. Yep. I think the Cubs are another team to watch to see what they do.
Yep.
They've now lost 3 in a row. They were playing pretty good ball for a while. That's kind of been halted in its tracks. They're 7.5 out. They're also 7 games under 500, but they're only team in the NL Central with a positive win differential, positive run differential still, which is still kind of funny. And the funny thing is the Cardinals, I mean, it's going to change today. They were negative 25 going into today. It's now 15-0 Marlins. So they're going to be on the par with the Pirates all of a sudden, and maybe not looking so great, and more commensurate with their record. So there is that. All right. You also mentioned Raisel Iglesias. You know, he missed all this time, but the Braves are so good that Iglesias is still going to end up with a ton of saves. He's at 15 now.
Yeah, at 15, having not pitched during the first month of the season. So, I mean, if he had pitched during the first month of the season, he would be right there with the league leaders right now. And the Braves are the best team in baseball. Do you agree with that? I think
I'd agree with that.
Like the Rays raced out in front of everyone, then suffered a bunch of pitching injuries. They're still like just behind, just right with the Braves. But I think the Braves are the best team in baseball at this point.
Yeah.
And probably the best position to be awesome the rest of the way, where they've got a dynamite offense. It could even lose a piece and they'd still be a dynamite offense. They have relievers are good, like good enough. Rotation's good.
They're going to get Freed back. They're going to get, they're going to Kyle Wright maybe back. We'll see what version of that they get, but
they've shown they'll make little moves at the deadline that make their team more versatile, deeper. I just think they're well positioned. And then Iglesias, who's got, a long track record, successful closer. I think he put his owners when he first came back. He had a couple hiccups, but he hasn't been awesome by any stretch, but he's got 15 saves in 2 months.
Yeah. So
he should finish the season with 30. If he doesn't get hurt again, he probably gets to 30 saves despite missing the first month of the season.
So if we were doing a draft on like, okay, we can draft like 5 teams apiece to be the World Series champion. Braves would go off the board first, no matter who. I think we agree with that. Who's number 2?
To be the World Series champion. I'm debating between 2 teams right now. I will take Houston.
Okay.
I was debating between them and the Rangers.
Yeah. Tough call. I mean, they just had a good series with the Rangers there.
Yeah.
I think they took, maybe they just split, or I thought it was 3 out of 4, but anyhow, they're only 3 games behind the Rangers now, 47 and 38. They'll get Jordan back. Pitching is the question. When do they get back on the pitching side of things? We know Garcia's not coming back. It looks like Urquidy might. I'm not sure that's a huge value add, but then they're filling in with their fifth starter slot right now with a number of different guys.
Christian Javier is a huge problem.
Yeah. Another bad outing yesterday.
That's what was making me think about taking Texas. And really, I thought about the Dodgers too. But just, I don't know. I think
you didn't think about the Rays.
No, I don't know. I feel like one of these teams is going to add more than the Rays at the deadline.
Yeah.
Like
what about the Orioles?
And it might be Texas.
What about the Orioles as a dark horse? Couldn't you see them?
Absolutely.
They've got all sorts of prospects to trade. Clearly, like they're nowhere near the salary cap, not salary cap, but the luxury tax levels there. Now we'll see if their chintzy owner will actually spend, but that would be they're an interesting dark horse too, and they got a great.
To me, the AL teams. Forget the AL Central team. To me, the 5 teams that will comprise the AL East, the AL West, and the 3 wild cards are all like just put them in a hat.
Yeah.
Like they're probably very, very even, but I don't see the Rays really anymore as ahead of. They just raced out in front in April, and since then they're kind of the same as these other teams. And
they just lost McClanahan. They're down Springs and Rasmussen basically for the year. Glasnow hasn't been good. They really that's what they really need to do is they need to go out and get another starter probably. And I know they always kind of like MacGyver it and they prove us wrong every time, but. At some point you figure they got to add it.
You know what the Rays need to do is they need to go find a guy on another team who's a reliever with a 5 ERA and then turn him into a starter with a 3 ERA in 2 weeks. That's what they do.
Robert Stevenson. Go pick him up now.
That's what the Rays do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
it-
exaggerating a bit, but that is basically what the Rays do. They find someone off someone else's scrap heap,
Yep.
and all of a sudden he's doing great in whatever role the Rays give him.
Yep.
But
Well,
anyways, did you have a different team that you would take second than the Astros or the Rangers? You thought about the Rays.
I thought about the Rays.
Yeah, I did think about the Dodgers because they do have some real star power in that lineup,
Mhm.
and the potential to have like in a playoff series, like if Arias could get back on track, like they could have some really good, like Kershaw's good. I don't know. They could have enough pitching and they could acquire someone. I'm not counting the Dodgers out. I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm also not counting the Giants out.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Rapid fire before we sign off here. A couple of news items. One, Jose Altuve just got scratched, according to Dave Duncan just posted that in the chat. Also, Josh Naylor hurt his wrist yesterday.
Yeah.
He's out of the lineup today. That's something to watch for too. That would be a big blow to Cleveland, by the way. He's been, I mean, it's not like he's Mike Trout, but he's got an 800 OPS and a team that's just thirsting for power. I mean, that's brutal.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, he's not Mike Trout, but this year he hasn't been too far off. But yeah, he's hitting 295 on that team. Like other than Jose Ramirez, he's probably their most important hitter. There's some other hitters I could maybe label more important because they've been so disappointing. Like they need to get it turned around. But yeah, Josh Naylor is hugely important to that team. So hopefully, for their sake, hopefully he this isn't like a lengthy IL spot, especially with Josh Bell not meeting expectations at all. That's put it all on Naylor. Like I felt like Bell and Naylor were supposed to be like their 4 or 5, especially against righties. Like kind of both be pretty good, but with Bell being so bad, it's kind of all on Naylor. If they lose Naylor and Bell doesn't come around, all of a sudden that lineup really drops off fast.
Yeah, and they might add Gonzalez, they might add others, but it's even if they do, I think it's still lacking lineup there. You know, Rosario's been meh, Jimenez has been meh. I think he homered yesterday, but you know, point being is there's not a whole lot to get excited about besides Jose Ramirez. And that makes it really difficult. All right, that's going to wrap things up for today's chat. Guys, I really love seeing all that activity in the chat room. Thanks for spending some of your holiday with us. We really appreciate it. Fred, thank you for, broadcasting from your office. And we appreciate everyone. Have a happy 4th. Stay safe out there. We don't want to have any Jason Pierre-Paul incidents here on our watch, so please be careful. And let's go Reds. Thanks for everybody for listening. Take care.